Hello everyone, my name is Priscila and today I will be presenting my Capstone project on CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions. This analysis uses data and Python visualization to better understand one of the biggest challenges of our time, climate change. Climate change is not just an environment issue, it affects economies, communities, and ecosystems worldwide. By analyzing data on CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions, we can identify key contributions, track global progress, and highlight areas where change is possible. The dataset used for this project contains over 50,000 entries in 79 columns. It includes details such as a country, year, population, GDP, and emissions from different fuel sources. To prepare the data, I cleaned and standardized it, keeping only the most relevant columns, and removed aggregated regions like world and Europe, so that the analysis focused on individual countries. For this project, I focused on several guiding questions, such as who are the largest emitters today? Which countries have the highest emissions per person? How have global emissions changed over time, and when did the growth accelerate the most? How has efficiency improved, meaning emissions per unit of GDP? Which fuel sources drive the most emissions? And finally, each countries are actually succeeding in reducing emissions. The key points for this presentation are CO2 emissions reduce emissions by 30% since 2000, how economic factors often correlate with these emissions, and the emerging economies show increased emissions while developing countries show reduction. When we look at the history, CO2 emissions stayed fairly stable for centuries. When then came the Industrial Revolution, and with it, a massive spike in emissions. Between 1950 and 2000 alone, global emissions grew more than 400%. This growth reflects industrialization, population growth, and higher living standards. Now, if we fast forward for 2023, just four players, China, the United States, India, and the European Union, account for more than 60% of the global emissions. China leads by far, producing almost double of the emissions of the US. Developing countries historically contributed most, but today developing nations play a much larger role in annual emissions. Looking at emissions per person tells a very different story. Smaller but wealthy oil producing countries like Qatar, Brunei, and Bahrain top the list, often 5 to 10 times the global average. This shows how lifestyle, consumption, and energy source matter just as much as population size. The good news is that the carbon intensity of the world economy has been dropping. Since 1999, emissions per dollar of GDP have fallen by about 40%. This means economies are becoming more efficient. However, these improvements are not enough of, to offset total economic growth, so absolute emissions are still going up. Some countries prove that change is possible. For example, Denmark has cut emissions nearly in half. The UK has reduced by more than 40% since 2000. Other countries like Ukraine and Syria show reductions mainly due to the conflict and reduced industrial activity. But Denmark and the UK demonstrate that policy, renewable energy, and efficient measures work. To wrap up, these are three key takeaways. Urgency remains. global emissions are still rising, and we are not yet on track to meet Paris Agreement goals. Second, there are positive signs. Renewable energy is cheaper, efficient, improving, and some countries are already reducing emissions. And third, we have the technology and the resource to solve this problem. What we need now is a strong pol- political will and public support to make solutions happen at scale. Thank you for your time. I hope this analysis give you a clearer picture of where we stand with emissions and what's possible if we take some action.